You'll see Howie Rose while you're here. Howie Rose recently celebrated 50 years in broadcast. We just want to see if there's any good Howie stories you can tell us.
There was a comeback, I think it was against Cleveland. I think it was Brad Hand.
Yep, J.D. Davis's walk-off hit.
And J.D. drives one toward the left field corner, and the Mets win it!
I look down, and it's Howie's feet. He's like running with the base runners, basically. As he's calling the plate, he's like running in motion himself. And everybody's coming around to score and to win the game, and Howie's stomping his feet as if he's running the bases with him.
Hey, what's up? It's Vito Calisi, Jonathan Barron. We're meeting at the Apple with Wayne Randazzo, who Mets fans, you remember him as one of our home radio announcers, but he's moved on to different things, and he'll be back on Friday night as a part of the Apple broadcast, which, off the bat, I want to say, of all of the national games and presentations, Apple by far my favorite. Think the camera quality is great. Also love the almost the iOS presentation of the game.
Well, we appreciate that. It's something that I think they've worked really hard to get straightened out over the last couple of years, and I think we start to hear it more and more that people are enjoying Friday Night Baseball and Apple TV, and it's I'm sure not always the greatest thing for fans to have to go find a game somewhere that's not their regular channel, but I think we try to put on the best broadcast we can every Friday, regardless of where we are, and really call the game and give the teams that are playing in that game their due, and I think we've put together a pretty good crew as well. With usually Dontrell Willis, although Dontrell won't be with me on Friday for the Mets game, but I think between Dontrell and Heidi Watney and me, I think we've really gelled together and have a good broadcast team.
So give us a scoop here, Wayne. If it's not going to be Dontrell, who's going to be in the booth with you on Friday night?
Yeah, Xavier Scruggs is going to fill in. He's usually on our pregame and postgame shows, and he's done some games before, not with me, but other MLB Network games and stuff. So he's a seasoned pro. We're happy to have Xavier for this week. I'm sure it'll be great.
That's great. And we were talking before we got going here. You're coming to town at a great time. You got the Astros coming to Citi Field. They're back from the dead. A tough start, but they're back right in the thick of the AL playoff race. And, of course, the Mets, who have had just an incredible June. I'm sure that you, out there on the West Coast, you probably know about all the fun we're having here at Citi Field with Grimace and just all the winning that's been going on. So what are your 30,000-foot view thoughts about this game on Friday night?
Yeah, really. I mean, a month ago, we knew we were doing this game, and it looked like, boy, these two teams might be really in trouble at that point in the season, and might not be such a great matchup. But now we've kind of run into what's a very good matchup between the Mets and the Astros, and both teams kind of in the same direction. Houston had a bad April, and they've recovered, while the Mets had a bad May, and they've recovered since then. But it'll be fun. Citi Field's always a great atmosphere. The Mets fans are always passionate, and I'm glad they've wrapped their arms around Grimace or whatever they feel like is a good luck charm for them.
We got one right here, Wayne. We got a Grimace right here for you.
Oh, good. Perfect. Got to slap some Mets gear on that Grimace. He's a big part of it. I don't know if they keep going. It's gonna be huge for both Grimace and the Mets, I think, to get together and make sure he gets part of the playoff share and everything.
Do you guys have plans to make any references to him in the broadcast?
I'm sure we will, and at this point, it's hard to avoid. I mean, we saw what's been happening there at Citi Field, and even yesterday during the rain delay, Grimace seemed to be having a good time. So
yeah, maybe too good of a time. Hopefully, a 21-year-old Grimace.
Yes. So, absolutely, I think we will.
So we're looking at two teams coming in right now who struggled early, but have just rebounded so well. What do you think going into a game like this? Like, how much do you think is on the line for each team right now? Even though, I mean, we're talking about late June games.
Yeah, I think, when you look at the series overall, I think the team that wins this series just continues their momentum. I think that's the big thing for both of these teams because, yeah, they're playing a lot better and they've gotten to 500, but neither is where they still want to be. I mean, they're trending in the right direction, but they're not there yet. So I think that the momentum continuing to push forward is important for both of these teams. The Mets are in this ridiculous chunk of wild card teams, and you don't really know where that's going to go. Houston pretty much has its sights set on one team right now. I mean, they're trying to track down Seattle in the American League West. They know what they need to do. They've done it every year pretty much for the last 7 years. So I think the Astros still have a great roster. They're banged up a little bit. Verlander's hurt right now. They've had some injuries to their pitching. Tucker's hurt right now. I don't know. I don't even think Tucker's going to play in this series against the Mets. But when they get completely healthy, I think that they have the best roster, and I think they're going to be hard to hold back in the American League West. As for the Mets, they're dealing with all these teams. San Diego's been playing better. St. Louis has been playing better. Atlanta's still pretty far ahead of them as far as the wild card goes. So you're still in this battle with and there's still teams behind the Mets that are trying to make noise. The Giants have suddenly won 3 in a row. Arizona could get healthy and find the magic they had last year. So the Mets need to keep it rolling, and they need to keep winning. And so every series right now is important.
I will say, Wayne, the Mets are only 5 games back of the Braves in the loss column, and they do have a lot of head-to-head still. So you know what?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, you were in the booth for this. The Mets had a big lead on the Braves. They took, I think it was 4 out of 5 in August, and we all know how things ended there. So
Braves had a bad start to that season.
Yeah. So Mets fans can take solace in that, knowing that those head-to-head matchups, and of course it was head-to-head second to last series of the season that kind of sunk the Mets battleship there. But you mentioned some of the injuries that the Astros are dealing with. One guy who just returned from injury and has been made a major impact, of course, is Yordan Alvarez. And I don't think that National League fans really understand just how good of a player and hitter that Yordan is. But you, of course, are the Angels play-by-play guy on Bally, so you get to see Yordan and the rest of the Astros quite frequently. How good is this guy? What should Met fans know about Yordan Alvarez?
Yeah, he's just a monster. I mean, he's almost inevitable. Like, you really can't pitch around him for 3 games. He's going to do something in this weekend that's going to be special. He's going to hit the ball hard almost every time. He's going to hit the ball a long way at one point at least. So, getting him out on a regular basis is pretty much impossible. You have to just hope that with Tucker out, you could pitch around him a little bit. That's the one thing with Kyle Tucker's injury. With Alvarez batting in front of Tucker, you have to pick your poison at that point. Altuve and Bregman are going to get on base. Altuve still especially is pretty much the same as he's always been. But having Alvarez and Tucker together in the middle of the order really makes them a longer lineup and makes for a lot of tough outs. And there's still protection there. Jeremy Pena can swing the bat, and Yainer Diaz can swing the bat for them. They have some guys who can hit, but Alvarez is a very special hitter, and he's a guy who's going to do, like Judge, you just saw in the last couple of games. There's only so much you can do with Judge there. And in the Mets case, they had big leads, and Judge's home runs didn't hurt them. But it's the same type of thing where there's that one big bat, just a huge man in the middle of the order that is going to hurt you. And you just hope that it's at a point where it doesn't really change the effect of the game.
Yeah, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. The Mets just dealt with a monster in the middle of the lineup, really, too, because it was Judge and Soto the Mets had to deal with. Like you mentioned, all the damage that those guys didn't really hurt the Mets because of the leads that they had. And I think the Astros right now at this point, given some of the injuries the Yankees are dealing with, have a deeper lineup than the Astros. So it's going to be quite a challenge for the Mets to conquer that Astro lineup and pitching around a guy like Yordan Alvarez. How about, you mentioned Yainer Diaz, and one matchup, or not really head-to-head matchup, but one theme of this series is going to be the great young catchers. For Houston, Yainer Diaz, and for the Mets, Francisco Alvarez, who has just been unconscious, an on-base percentage over 600 during a 9-game hitting streak. Talk about the two catchers and their skill sets.
Yeah, I think Alvarez right now is a more complete catcher than Diaz. I think they trust Alvarez more with the catching responsibilities than they do in Houston with Diaz at this point. And Diaz spent basically a whole year last year, whether the Astros fans liked it or not, kind of being the backup in a sense, or at least being the tutor for Martin Maldonado. So there was a lot of learning happening for Diaz last year with Maldonado there. Well, Maldonado's gone now, and Diaz has been pretty much the everyday catcher for the Astros this year, and I think he's getting there. He had a slow start offensively. He can really hit, though. It's a guy who can smash the baseball. He's aggressive at the plate. Alvarez, another guy who's a good hitter, can hit the ball a long way, and I think is developing into a leader and a guy that you can trust behind the plate as well as at the plate. And you look around the game, there's not as many catchers right now that are both producing offensively and defensively, and I think Alvarez is one of those guys. There probably isn't more than 10 throughout all of Major League Baseball that can do the things that Francisco Alvarez can do. Yainer Diaz maybe can get there from a defensive standpoint, but Alvarez, for being as young as he is, pretty much already there.
And his battery mate that night is going to be Jose Quintana, who just coming off of his best start of the season in Chicago. Just what do you think Mets fans should be looking out for Jose Quintana that night? Just his approach to this Astros lineup.
I mean, Quintana's going to have to do what he does best. He has to just change speeds and make sure he hits his spots. I mean, he's still, they brought him in to just be kind of a durable guy who's going to go 5-6 innings and keep your team in the game. That's really ultimately what he should be. I know he hasn't been throughout the season but do you think that he'll be able to figure that out as he goes along? He's been better lately, and I think the Mets feel like they're fine there with Quintana. The problem would be the other guy. Ronel Blanco is pretty good for Houston, and he's had a no-hitter this year. He's taken another game deep into a no-hitter through 7 innings, which they took him out. If they had kept him going, who knows, maybe to have had a second no-hitter this year. So he's got great stuff. He also had a suspension at some point because of a sticky substance like Edwin Diaz is going through right now. And other than that, he's a great pitcher, and I think the Mets will certainly have their hands full of Blanco tomorrow.
So a lot of great intrigue. The Mets lineup, red hot. Ronel Blanco, red hot. So many great storylines. Yourself and Xavier and Heidi will break it all down during the broadcast, which we're all very excited for. But that's a lot of baseball talk. Now let's have some fun. Whenever Wayne Randazzo comes back to New York, it's always a reunion between 3 friends: Wayne, Steve Gelbs, Tony DiComo. So what do you guys have planned for Friday night, if anything?
Well, I'm sure Tony will be there. I don't know if Steve will be there. Steve did come last time we did an Apple game. Steve did show up, brought his son to the game, and we had a good time there. These Apple games, SNY kind of just does what they want to do. They get a Friday night off, so I don't know if Steve will be at the ballpark tomorrow, but Anthony will be. He's got
to come support his buddy. Come on now, Steve.
Well, he did the last time. He was there, so I'll give him a pass tomorrow if he wants to have the Friday night off. We'll see. The Mets come to Anaheim in early August,
right?
So we'll I'm sure get together then at the Big A. So it'll be good, but. I think Tony needs to show me some of the new food items at Citi Field.
Oh man,
what are you into? What do you? I mean, we could give you suggestions right now if you want to hear about some stuff.
Sure. Yeah. We have one more game there, I think, in September, which isn't official yet, but I think we're going to come back.
Breaking news. Can you tell us what that game is, or can we not say that yet?
Well, I think it's the Phillies, but they depends on who's in the race and everything by then. That could be a big game though.
Good.
So possible that we'll be there for that one. That's kind of in pencil right now.
Okay.
So,
food. I mean, look, the rainbow, the fried,
That's where you're going to start.
The egg roll, dude. The egg roll rainbow cookie is like the biggest thing this season. Like people.
That's an aggressive one to start with.
It's the viral rainbow cookie egg roll. Man.
I was thinking Prince Street Pizza, maybe something a little bit more regular.
Yeah, but like Prince Street Pizza, it's great. You can get pizza everywhere. Where else are you going to get a fried rainbow egg roll cookie?
Can you get that out at the Big A, Wayne, or anything close?
You cannot get a fried rainbow egg. I don't even think I've seen this thing.
It is an egg roll, but inside of it, it's a rainbow cookie.
Okay, does that taste good?
It doesn't. It sounds crazy. It sounds like how can this thing taste good? But it's insane. Everybody I've given it to loves it.
Have you had it yourself?
Yeah, man. I had it at What's New with you.
Oh, I didn't. I mean, Wayne. You fry anything, it's good, right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I guess so. I love Prince Street Pizza, but I feel like I could just go to Prince Street Pizza.
Exactly.
So what is something that at Citi Field I can only get?
Okay, well the rainbow egg roll like that. We also have a gyro now, which is really exciting. You can get an Italian hoagie over at the Metro Marketplace. Upstairs in the Hudson Highball area, we have a Korean chicken fried noodle dish that has mushrooms, peppers, noodles, chicken.
Sounds good. That might be the play.
So that one's real good, and it's close to the booth.
Yeah, that might be it. That's a good one.
Were you an Astoria guy at all when you were here in New York?
Just the pandemic year I lived there, so I wasn't really full Astoria.
Okay.
I've been over there. I think the Como is kind of over that way, so I've been over there a few times.
All right. Well, so there's a great establishment called Pig Beach in Astoria, and they have a stand here. And if you're into pulled pork, mac and cheese, those sorts of things, good barbecue food.
They were here when Wayne was here.
Oh, were they? I thought they were new.
No. They've been here for a few years. Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know if you ever tried Pig Beach when you were here, But if you didn't and you're looking for something good, that's my recommendation. So
when you're reuniting with, you'll see Howie Rose while you're here. Howie Rose recently celebrated 50 years in broadcast. We just want to see if there's any good Howie stories you could tell us.
That's a very open-ended question. There's probably a million good Howie stories I could tell you. I just think what the Howie off the air is probably funnier and even quicker of wit than the Howie on the air. The one thing, though, I think that really I remember when I was first starting to do games with him more regularly, 2019. Remember, in 2019, the second half, the team started playing really well. They kind of made a push in August, and they kind of got pushed back down. They still ended up with like 86 wins that year, which was a lot higher total than what they were on pace for in the first half of that season. So there's some big games in the second half of the season. And there was a comeback, I think it was against Cleveland. I think it was Brad Hand.
Yep, J.D. Davis's walk-off hit.
Yeah, and it was J.D. Davis who hit that like a double into the left field corner. And Howie's calling it, and I hear this like somebody's like there's like a charging of a bull or something. I'm like, what is this extra noise I'm hearing? And I look down, and it's Howie's feet. He's like running with the base runners basically as he's calling the play. He's like running in motion himself, and everybody's coming around to score and to win the game. And Howie's stomping his feet as if he's running the bases with him. And I thought that was the perfect symbol of Howie's passion for this team and for what he does. And I just thought it was really funny how he was it was as if he was the man who was rounding third and heading home. At least in his mind, he probably was.
That's a great story. And you, of course, had some great calls yourself during your time behind the microphone as a Mets broadcaster. So we here on the show, we like to do some Mount Rushmore. Who doesn't love a good Mount Rushmore? So give us your Mount Rushmore, your 4 favorite calls as a Mets broadcaster, if you can.
Well, I would say
I think I know one of them.
Two are the easiest ones. Number 1, or at least 1 and 1A, I would say are the Yoenis Cespedes home run in the first playoff game at Citi Field. That basically ended Game 3 of that division series against the Dodgers. I mean, that place was insane that night. I mean, they really wanted blood after the Utley Ruben Tejada play. I've never heard a place so loud as when Utley was introduced, because it was the first playoff game at home. So They did all the pre-game introductions. Utley gets introduced, and it's just unbelievably loud how much booing he received, which he probably loved. And as the game went along, the Mets were pretty much in control. But when Cespedes hit that home run, the place just lost its mind. It was a great moment to call. I don't even know. I mean, the call was fine, but just the moment was unbelievable. And then Pete's home run to break the rookie record would be the other one that stands out the most to me. I think that was a special moment, and for Alonso and for the organization at the time. Judge had just set the record. McGuire had it for so long, and then Judge had just set it a couple of years before. And it was a neat thing for the Mets and for Pete to have that record. So those two, I think, stand out the most. As for the other two, I think to me the game that the Mets won in 2022 in the wild card series against the Padres. I mean, anytime you get into the playoffs, it's just such a different feeling. And, there was that rally they had, I think it was like the 6th inning of the second game where they pulled away, or it was probably the 7th inning if I was doing it. And they pulled away and were able to kind of secure the win in that inning and keep their season alive. I think that was a pretty cool night and broadcast moment. And then, almost any of those great Jacob Degrom starts in 2019 stand out to me. I mean, there was when he had the ball, there was such a hush over everyone in the stadium, and especially the home games. You could really feel it every time the first hit of the game happened. And Jake never really had a long no-hit bid ever during his time with the Mets, really.
I think he had a one hitter in 2016. He did. Zach Eflin got the one hit in Philly.
Yeah, but it was like in the 5th inning.
Yeah. There was no build up during it.
Never had like a long, like 8th, 9th inning no hit bit.
Right.
But even so, it always felt like he did, because it was if the 3rd inning was the first hit, the fans you would just kind of hear everybody take a breath, like they were waiting to see if Degrom would throw a no hitter that night, or even a perfect game, because he was so dominant. And I was just those were the best games to call. Was a Jacob Degrom, a home start in the middle of when he was really. You could say he was the best pitcher in baseball at that time. You could say maybe he was one of the best pitchers of all time at that time. And it's really a shame that he has not been able to stay healthy and be able to perform the way that he can and put up Hall of Fame type numbers, because I think he's the best pitcher I've ever seen.
Do you remember, it was April 15th, 2021. So Jackie Robinson night against the Nationals. He had 15 strikeouts.
Yeah.
That one stands out to me as one of his most dominant performances. I remember working the game that night, and I got home, and there aren't often many nights where I get home and I can't sleep because I'm so excited about what I saw that night. One of those instances was the walk-off win against the Nats in 2019, the Frazier game-tying homer against Doolittle and then Conforto's walk-off. That night, and for some reason, DeGrom's performance against the Nationals on that April night, I was so excited about what I had witnessed. It was the most dominant performance I remember seeing from Jake. Yeah. Do you feel the same way about that game?
That one stands out. There's one other one in Miami where he had 14 strikeouts and hit a home run.
And a homer, yep.
So that always stands out to me because of the home run, which Jake loved to hit, and him going deep that night on top of striking out 14. When Miami, I don't think they had gotten rid of everybody yet, or maybe they had. They probably had, but
tale as old as time.
Yeah, but that was really an epic performance too, and it was just special to see Degrom dominate the way that he did. It was really a privilege to watch him, kind of like watching Shohei last year. I mean, it's just a different type of level to watch a guy like that at playing Major League Baseball the way that they did.
The night he got injured versus Chicago, where that was like a night where I remember the first, because he got taken out like the 4th or the 5th.
Yeah, I think he hit and
he got hurt, and I remember that night I felt like that was the night. Like there was something in my blood where I was like, oh, this is the night where Jake's going to throw a no-hitter or a perfect game. Like he just looked utterly dominant that night. And it's funny, Wayne, that you brought up the Chase Utley moment, because we talked to Daniel Murphy. We've had this conversation with a bunch of guys of like, what's the loudest moment in Citi Field? One comes up all the time is that night they took the lead versus the Nationals on Sunday Night Baseball. But Daniel Murphy said the loudest night he ever heard, he was like, it wasn't cheers, it was boos, but it was that night everybody booed Chase Utley.
Yeah, it was really unbelievable. I mean, Utley was already there. Everybody already hated Utley anyway, so it was just fuel to the fire what happened in L.A. With Ruben Tejada. But it was just and it being the first playoff game ever at Citi Field, and really the first time Citi Field had a moment, I guess, outside the All-Star game. You know, Citi Field really hadn't been the Mets' home yet, you know, after the move from Shea. And that night, I think, changed everything about the Citi Field experience, and the Mets fans really warming up and making sure Citi Field was theirs. It was a fun night, and then the way that they won the game and Cespedes' home run really brought the house down. So I mean, I think throughout the playoff, Citi Field was consistently the loudest of any place we went to during that postseason.
That, of course, was against an LA team. You've been on the West Coast now for 2 years, calling Angels games. So wondering what your opinion is, East Coast versus West Coast, and especially New York versus LA. The lifestyle, the way the fans are, you know, just can you break it down, the differences, the biggest ones in your opinion?
Well, you know, the Angels, they are the Los Angeles Angels, but they play in Orange County in Anaheim. And,
nowhere near Dodger Stadium, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, it's nowhere near Dodger Stadium. So it's a different experience, I think, than even the Dodgers. You know, it's just kind of an Orange County life, or I'm just outside of LA. So, you know, the traffic's not really that bad where I am, and it's not that difficult to get around. Even going to the airport's not too bad from where I am. So, you know, but it's a good lifestyle. The best thing about being out here, I think, it is just the way you can have a nice morning out here and get everything together and then go to the game. It's an easier kind of lifestyle here. Obviously, a lot less hustle and bustle happening here, and everybody's a little bit breezier, I think, here in California than in New York. The best parts, I think, from a selfish standpoint, are the fact that the game tonight's at 6:30, and it will start at 6:30, and it will end around 9. And with the pitch timer, especially, that you know when this is going to happen, when it's going to end, generally, and there will be no disruptions. Grimace is not going to be chugging anything at Angel Stadium tonight during a rain delay, because there won't be one. And it will be.
That's a good point.
It will be. You can set your watch to it that this game will happen. I haven't seen the tarp on the field since I've been here.
Lucky you. Humble brag there.
We were here till I think 1
a.m. last night.
1 a.m.
Really, in a long season, it just adds up. Like you had those extra hours at the ballpark and the extra time there that you're spending. I mean, it just tires you out even more. It's even weird now when the Angels are playing on the East Coast or in the Midwest and there's a rain delay. I didn't sign up for this. Like, why is this thing on the field? I think we've only had one this year. I think when we were in Boston, we had one, and it was a short one. But I think that's the only rain delay we've had all season. So it's I think those are the moments where you can really kind of get into a better routine, knowing that you're going to have the games at these times and these days, and there's going to be no disruptions, no double headers, nothing like that to your schedule.
Well, the good news is, real quick, I just checked the weather app on Apple, of course. Not a drop of rain in the forecast for tomorrow. So.
Now that he said it, we'll see what happens on Friday.
Yeah, you can blame me if there is a pop-up cell that comes by, but.
So Wayne, going from you do the national games and you do the Angels games. When you're a home broadcaster, you kind of get to have more fun. You get to talk just about your week, what you've been into. How hard is it to snap out of that when you go into the Apple game where you can't just have as much downtime to just talk about what's going on in your life?
Well, the pitch timer eliminates some of that anyway, but it's you are it's a more relaxed atmosphere on the home broadcast because, the audience knows you.
They're partially there for you in that situation, right? Like you're part of their family. They welcome you.
Yeah, I mean, kind of are, and they kind of get to know your personality and your quirks. And I have a really good rapport with Don Terrell, so it's the rapport is great, and even though we only work once a week, but there's still just the person you're with every single day. And Mark Gubiza is who I do the Angels games with, and he's been doing Angels games for a long time. It's just your feet are up more in those types of broadcasts. Whereas with the national game, you're kind of more on the edge of your seat. You're more in tune to what's happening because I think the games are different from a consequential standpoint too. The Angels are having a season where they're well under 500, and even though they've been playing better, they're still probably, unless something really changes, not going to be a playoff contender. So the games have a different meaning. Now we're walking into the Mets and Astros tomorrow, and last week we did the Yankees and Braves. 3 weeks ago we did the Dodgers and the Yankees. I mean, these are big games. These are important games. So you really have to treat them as such, and so you're on the edge of your seat more, and you're focused on the game and how these plays will swing it. The only time it gets to feel like a home broadcast, I guess, is when it's like a blowout, and then you peel back, and then you just kind of tell stories and get to the finish line. Other than that, though, these games I think take on more consequence, and you have to treat it as such.
So we've talked a decent amount of Grimace here, and I can promise you there will be a decent amount of Grimace here tomorrow night, so I'm sure it'll come up on the broadcast. As an Angel broadcaster, and Vito and I had a conversation about this a couple episodes ago here on Meet at the Apple, we talked about some of the greatest rallying cries and rally symbols in baseball history, and one resides right there at Angel Stadium, and that, of course, is the rally monkey. So I've never been to Angel Stadium myself. Have you?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So I can't really say this, so now we rely on you. Is the rally monkey still alive in any which way, shape, or form?
He's alive. Okay. Yeah. He's still a good. I actually saw someone yesterday somehow made and this literally just happened yesterday. Somebody made a puppet of the rally monkey, and they were going around with this rally monkey puppet yesterday, which was an interesting way to do it. But you still see the rally monkey. He'll still pop up on the video board. I think that I wonder if this team, when this team gets back into a playoff situation, if he'll take on more of a prominent role, because he was he was as much a part of that 2002 championship as anyone, it seemed like, back then. I mean, it was all about the rally monkey and the thunder sticks and the things that they had going on at Angel Stadium. It's a pretty ballpark. It's got a lot. It's a good scene, when you're at the game and you're looking out at the field. It's a very scenic looking place, and it's an older ballpark, so there's some different charms that come with that. But I think Angel Stadium is a nice home for this ball club. There's lots of, compared to the Dodgers, people always say it's so easy to get there and get out of there. Even when there's 45,000 people there, there's still an ease to it that you don't get at Dodger Stadium. So I think the Angels do a good job, and now they just got to get a winning team out there.
John and I both went to our first Dodgers game separately this year. I went when the Mets were there. John went for a different game. And we both had different experiences, because John went with a media badge, so he was able to get out, but he still had to walk all the way up. I went in the Uber area, and they put you in like a pig pen where you're just waiting with 100 other people.
It's crazy, man.
Just trying to find your Uber after you had to take a freight elevator upstairs because you start from the bottom and you work your way up.
Yeah, it's a pain to get in and out of there. I mean, if you had your own car, it wouldn't have been much better. I mean, you still had to wait, probably an hour or more to get out of Dodger Stadium. It's definitely kind of isolated where it is, and it's just the way that there's really only one way in and one way out for 50,000 people. So it's tough.
Well, Wayne, thank you so much for catching up with us. Mets fans, you can hear Wayne Friday night, tonight when this episode drops, and you can hear that on Apple. You can see that on Apple Plus. Watch that game, Friday Night Baseball, Mets Astros. Let's keep the Grimace era alive. Wayne, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to your welcome home ceremony at Citi Field this week, and hope we get to see you interact with Howie a little.
All right, sounds good. Thanks a lot, guys.